Is your practice tired of wrestling with insurance denials, deciphering EOBs, and watching your revenue slip through the cracks? You are not alone. Welcome to The Claim Game, the podcast designed to cut through the confusion and provide you with the best practices for revenue cycle management success. We are Jeremy and Catherine Zug, and we've been with people just like you in the trenches. Each week, we'll break down complex billing processes, share real-world solutions from practices like yours, and ask questions of the game makers and changers of healthcare so you can take control of your revenue. Let's turn those claim denials into deposits and help you return to focusing on patient care. It's time to win the claim game.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you got into practice, where you're located, and let's just start there.
I'm Dr. Dominique Dor. I am a trauma-focused life skills psychotherapist. I'm in private practice. I am the owner of SOTM Life Skills Center. I've been in the Duncanville area since 2014. That's kind of how I got started.
Okay, but you have a really interesting background. You and I have connected in a couple of different ways, but most recently we touched base at the Group Practice Scaling Summit in Chicago, which was really great. Can you talk a little bit about your background and how you got started in the business world?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I got started, originally, I was born in a beautiful little island called Port-au-Prince, Haiti. It's been in the news a lot, but believe you me, it's a very, very beautiful island. I went from Haiti to Brooklyn, New York. So in Brooklyn, after I finished high school, I know I always wanted to go into the people helping profession. But as I started going to school, I also landed a job with a guy named Harold. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say his name on.
No last names. There's a lot of Harolds that live.
Yeah. So I landed a job working as a receptionist with Harold. And I might have been working there for almost a year. Never has anything to say to me. And then one day he saw a book in economics on my desk and he says, "What is that?" And I said, "Well, that's my school book." He says, "You going to school?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, I'm not paying you enough for you to pay tuition. How are you doing it?" I said, "Well, I have 2 or 3 jobs here and there. Do what I have to do." And then he says, "Oh, okay." And he walked away. But Harold every morning will walk into the office with this big newspaper, like 2 pages long. And it looks like foreign language to me, to be honest. And one day, out of the blue, going from a guy who never had anything to say to me to a guy who's teaching me how to read the Wall Street Journal.
Man.
Yeah, that's what I say. What a gift that was. So he showed me how to read the Wall Street Journal. And frankly, it looks like Japanese, Chinese to me at that point. But the moment he showed me how to read the Wall Street Journal, it was evident to me and very clear why some people were broke and others had the language to be filthy rich. And from that day on, I fell in love with investment.
Oh, wow.
And so my undergrad is in finance. One of the things he taught me was how to invest. And I was able to invest in the stock market to help meet some of my college tuition. Even to the point where I was able to even leave Brooklyn and enter into a university where I cashed in some of my investment to pay for my first year of college. So, hoo-ah.
Thank you, Harold. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's a lifetime of education there, and I thank him from the bottom of my heart because having that financial life skills planted into me was the thing that makes me be able to save money to start my practice later on.
That is the best thing I've heard all week. I mean, it's really a great story. And so you learn investment from Harold. He takes you under his wing. You pay for school. But then you land in North Texas somehow. So did you go straight from Brooklyn to North Texas, or what was that circuitous?
No, actually, I started a process of elimination. So I could have stayed in Brooklyn, live at home, And my tuition at the time would have been coming to Texas, my tuition would have been cheaper at the time. There was a time when tuition in Texas was pretty inexpensive. So I was able to save enough money to come to Texas, live in the dorm, as opposed to staying in Brooklyn. It has helped me a lot to be able to do that. So I'm just really grateful and thankful for the knowledge that he imparted in me.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's fantastic. And so you have a finance background
Mhm.
and you have a psychology background. So tell us about your practice. How big is the
Well,
practice? What are you working
yeah,
on?
at SOTM Life Skills Center, I work with individuals and couples that are going through trauma, PTSD, just basic life situations. So one of my stories that I like to set up the whole why I started to go into the people helping skill is that there's a study that's called the Adverse Childhood Experiences, and that's the ACEs study that came out. So the ACEs assessment will allow you to grade yourself in 10 different areas. And so if you score anything 3 or above, you are doomed to become a statistics, have health issues and all kind of things that's going on with you physically, emotional, mentally. And so my ACE score, now bear in mind the ACE, the highest score you can get in an ACE, in the ACEs score assessment is a 10. And I score for the first time in my life a perfect 10. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I scored a perfect 10 in the aces. I wish
Wow.
it was I wish it was a good thing.
Yeah, right. It's like golf. You want the lowest score possible, right? Because you said
Yeah.
3 or above, and you're doomed to be a
Yeah,
statistic, and you're a perfect 10. So like you should really not be here.
absolutely. Absolutely. So looking back at my life, I started asking myself hard question. I said, what was it about me that I was not a statistics as was determined for my life based on my ACE score? What did I do differently? And so when I look at it, I realize that, well, it's because I was engaging nonstop and learning new coping skills. Whatever I didn't know, I didn't have people around me that could teach me half the stuff I needed to know to get through life. So the Brooklyn Public Library became my best friend.
Mm.
At the Brooklyn Public Library is how I learned that I didn't have to stay in Brooklyn. I could go to college somewhere else. So I used to go to the Brooklyn Public Library from sun up to sundown, just stay there. Sometimes I stay too late, I can catch the bus back and I would get in trouble with my father. So I acquired a lot of skills because I learned to read a lot of people's biography, and I realized, no, life doesn't have to be the way I'm looking at it. So when I went from Brooklyn to Beaumont, Texas at Lamar University, once I finished, I came back to Dallas, and I know that even though I'm going to be in the finance world, I'm always going to end up doing something where I am taking individuals and teaching them the things that I'm learning now.
Wow.
Because I realize trauma doesn't just happen to you, trauma doesn't just leave scars, it really leaves a life skill gap. And so the life skill gap that was missing for me was a bunch of them.
Like all of them.
Like all of them, like
Except
all
you
of
knew
them.
how to read.
Yeah, even to the point where when I look at the whole process, I identify, even though this is not a new concept, but I developed something called the I-PROFESS model. The I-PROFESS model is where I teach individuals, whether it's individuals, couples, my training is around the 8 dimensions of life. So I look at life, I look at the intellectual aspect of life. I look at the physical aspect of life, the relational, the occupational, the financial, the emotional, spiritual, and social. That acronym for that is I profess. And so when we look at an individual and we notice that this beautiful soul in front of us, there's really nothing wrong with them. We can really train them and teach them the gap that's missing between the way they were trained and where they're going.
Mm.
And when we don't do that, I feel like we do them an injustice. So going from a ACEs of 10, when I look at my life, I realize I was always juggling these 8 areas. I was always juggling how to not stay socially isolated.
Mm.
I was always juggling how to how to have a decent career, how to relate to people, how to keep my mind sane in the middle of everything that was going on, how to meet life from a financial standpoint. So the I-PROFESS model really fit in. When a client sits in front of me, I know they come in because there's an emotional gap.
Mhm.
But I know if I continue to see that client in 3 months, they're going to hit at least two of the 8 areas. And then back again we go into depression or anxiety or whatever it is they're coming for.
Right. It sounds like you're really curious
Hmm.
as a person. You
Yeah.
ask a lot of questions. Do you think that was critical to how you got here, like running a practice in Texas, getting out of
Yeah.
your background? I mean, was that pretty critical or no?
Absolutely critical. You gotta remain curious. You gotta almost always wanna know what is this? Asking the right question. But it's not only curiosity, it's curiosity followed up with action.
Mm.
You could
That's
be
good. Yeah.
you could be curious all you want, but if you don't go open up, somebody's website or read a book or do the research, now we live in a world like right now. I'm like wow by life as it is. I feel like I'm living in the greatest time in history. When you think of research back then, where you had to have 20 books in front of you, and then now I can just click in AI.
Oh, it's so
Yeah,
true. It's
that's
so true. I
amazing.
mean, you with AI must be like unstoppable.
No, I'm learning just like the rest of us. I'm learning just like the rest of us. I am fascinated. I get excited about technology,
Hmm.
even though that was not my field. But one thing I realized, I used to work at the geriatric department, and I realized one of the things that ages people is technology, not just your health.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, not just your health, technology. Because at some point, everybody's going to make the decision.
I gotcha. And
Yeah,
is that when they start to age, or is it when they don't want
yeah,
to keep going?
absolutely. Think about it, because if I decide today, I don't even want to hear about AI. I don't even want to hear about internet. Can you imagine? Yeah,
I mean, the world would fly right past you in some sense, but then there's folks like there are whole communities of people that have survived for thousands of years without technology, and they're doing
absolutely.
great. And so you kind of have to choose, right? You
Yeah,
have to choose which path you want to take. They're both viable, but I agree with you. I think AI is a huge force multiplier, and I think it can be a force multiplier, good and bad.
yeah,
Ideally good, yeah. And so I think there's something to learn every day. I think it's one of
yeah,
those habits that,
yeah.
15, 20 minutes a day, learn something new because it's changing so quick. In your I-PROFESS model, what is one life skill that an individual or maybe even a practice owner or you has developed to make sure that either their business or their personal life remains financially stable?
The number one life skills that I think has really helped me out as a business owner had to be my financial skills, being financially aware of what's going on. It's interesting because I used to work out across the street from a little college, and then one day I decided that I was going to take a law class during my lunch hour. And so I went across the street and I fell in love with learning about law. And I started taking classes, and I ended up having a paralegal, a legal assistant certification, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, wow.
Never really used it a day in my life, except it has saved me thousands.
Okay, what way? How has it done that?
In the sense that I knew enough to go into libraries, to go into the law library downtown Dallas and do my own research. And that was before the internet, by the way. Pull my own forms, file my own corporations, whatever it is I needed to do from that one class. You cannot put a price on growing yourself or growing the skills you need to get through life. So financial awareness is one thing, but financial accountability, I think that's a must have.
Talk about financial accountability. What do you mean by that?
Financial accountability. Best thing I'm going to use myself as an example. So one day when I got into the workforce, I was working, and every Sunday evening around 3 o'clock, I get this knot in my stomach because I did not want to go to that job. Did not want to go back into that job. Every Sunday evening, I felt sick to my stomach and I wanted to quit and I couldn't. So I went into work that Monday and I made a decision that stayed with me until I exit the workforce. And it's this decision. I made the decision that my next paycheck, I'm going to learn to live on half.
Jeez.
Yeah, that sounds completely impossible, right?
That sounds extreme, but I
Yeah,
also
well,
love it.
yeah, yeah. And from that day on, I have learned to live on half of my paycheck the entire time.
Ever
Every
since?
every time I would quit a job or leave a job, I would always negotiate a salary that would allow me to buy at least 1 to 2 years off.
Oh my gosh.
So,
All right, wait, so talk
finan-
about that. So like your job, you would negotiate a job where the salary would allow you to take 1 to 2 years off, as in you live on 50% of what you make
yes,
so that you
exactly.
could live to have 2 years of expenses covered, essentially.
Precisely.
Okay, I got it.
Precisely. To the T. Exactly that.
Got it.
Because when I made the decision that Monday and I realized, wait a second, there was a lot of fluff going on here. So let's start investing the rest, right? Let's start investing and learn to live on half so that way I can buy me my time back. And I've been doing it all throughout. As a matter of fact, I would go as far as to say, I will start a job and knew exactly when I was going to leave the job.
Wow. Holy cow.
And that's a freedom that I created for myself that allowed me to be here today in private practice. Because the money was so good, the bonuses being in finance, that I would have never left it to go start a private practice. But because I know that's where I wanted to land, I needed to make sure that I held myself accountable financially, and not only hold myself accountable financially, but making sure that I'm very much aware of my personal numbers and my business numbers.
Hmm. I mean, I think that's a good that's a that's a great piece of advice. So when you talk about financial accountability, you mean to yourself. You mean like you set an objective,
Mhm.
right? And you commit to that as if you're committing to it to somebody else.
Yeah. Absolutely. But not just to yourself, to the mission, right? To the vision. For some
Hmm.
reason, God gave me a vision for my life that was bigger than myself.
Hmm.
I always, even when I didn't have a dollar, I wanted to have 10 people working with me. I don't know where that came from.
No, I mean, that's great. You're just like, yeah, you have such a unique way of seeing this stuff. So do you do that when you run your practice now?
Yeah, I
So
do.
you live on half.
Yeah. Well, you have to. You have to learn. I put away enough cash to where if something happens, because remember, the business I'm in a group practice. There are other individuals that depends on making sure that we meet the payroll. There are other individuals that this paycheck is going to help pay their mortgage or whatever it is. So because of that, I have to make sure I keep my eyes on all the key numbers. My revenue, how much, what are my expenses? Especially you are in claims, and you should know that.
Yeah, yeah,
As
that's right.
keep an eye on the shows and no shows, the decline claims, everything. So numbers play a pretty real big deal for our center and in my personal life.
Yeah, oh, for sure. You have to. I don't know how you live without it, right? There's that quote from The Office from I don't know if you watch The Office, but there's a line that goes, the first rule of Silicon Valley is never think about the money, just the experience. Well, that doesn't sound right to me, but no, I think that's fantastic. This episode is brought to you by Jane, a practice management software and EMR built to support you in the day-to-day work of running your practice. If you're a health or wellness practitioner, you already know the care you provide starts well before your client arrives and extends far beyond the treatment room. Jane is there to support you in every part of that experience. With online booking, your clients can book at a time that works for them. And with features like notifications, they'll even be able to grab last minute openings when they pop up. It's an easy way to keep your schedule full while getting your clients the care they need. During your appointment, Jane's AI-powered documentation feature can help you thoughtfully take notes so you can stay present with the person in front of you. And after appointments, you can end your time together on a healing note, not a transactional one, by charging the card on file. To learn more about how Jane can support you and your clients, head to jane.app/demo. And one last thing, if you're ready to get started with Jane, you can use my code in the show notes for a 1-month grace period on your new account. Well, tell us about your practice. How many clinicians do you have now? You said you want 10 people working with you.
Yeah, that was the goal. The goal is 10 individuals. They come and go.
Okay.
Right now we have 5. As a matter of fact, just one individual was an associate, and she finishes, and so now she's getting ready. She's on her own at this point, and so we have 5 clinicians working at our center.
Amazing.
We have front desk assistants, somebody that works with our billing, somebody that works with our scheduling. Yeah, it's and that quote you just mentioned kind of makes sense to me because the journey is amazing. Being in business, the journey is amazing. I wouldn't change this for anything else.
For sure. Yeah, and the money is not the goal. Like money is
and if it is, you're gonna be disappointed. Sorry.
Yeah. Because there's always gonna be somebody with more, which is probably a good thing for most people. But yeah, so what's the mission of your practice? What are you trying to accomplish?
At SOTM Life Skills Center, one of the things we try to do is we don't try it. We do it.
Nice.
We do it every single day. We are doing it over here every single day. We work with individuals, male, female, couples, and we take them from surviving to thriving in the 8 areas that I just mentioned and using the I-PROFESS model. So the goal is, I often say this, the goal is, shame on us if we're seeing the same client for 5 years and that client does not have coping skills in all the 8 areas of their lives.
Does that happen?
I know clinicians that have been with clients for many, many, many years. Personally, I'm not sure I want to see someone that long. I understand coming back for tune-ups. I understand coming back because you reach a space in life where life is becoming difficult and we need to increase your life skills in that area. But we should be building on that. We should be building on the different skills that you have learned last year, the year before, and now you're stuck. So then you should not be sitting week after week, month after month on my couch, and you're still at the same space. So at our practice, we don't just treat symptoms. It's not just the treatment plan. It's also providing the life skills needed so the person never have to be without.
That's incredible. Do you find, knowing numbers and thinking about numbers and knowing that you're a numbers-driven person, do you find that your clients have better outcomes in other areas of health than just mental health?
Well, absolutely. Because I'm not saying, I don't know if they do, if they don't, I've never actually done the research behind it, but I know that they keep coming back. I know they send their sisters, their brothers, their nieces, their nephews. So that's a testimony within itself, right? But for my clients, they all look wonderful and great, and many of them are thriving. And so then that to me, but I've never actually took a poll. Even though we do have measuring tools at our center. So we do send out the ARM5 just to make sure that the client, they're able to assess their clinician. So we do that. But think about it. If somebody's coming into your practice, so the first thing we do is we provide them with the ACEs assessment. They complete the paperwork. They tell us what they're coming in. With the ACEs assessment alone, we can identify what are some of these adverse childhood experiences that this person had to drag along his or her life. And what is that experience that's showing up in their marriages today? And so when we are able to do that, so the client comes in and he or she's, they bumping head, whatever, if they are a couple, and they having communication issues, right? I have to go back and look at the ACEs to kind of get an idea, what was life like for that client? I always want to start with the home of origin. And that's what the ACEs allow me to do.
Yeah, you're getting behind their eyes. You want to see what life was like behind their eyes from 0 to however old they are
18.
Now. Yeah, 18, okay.
Yeah, because the ACEs will also, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Assessment, look at life from 0 to 18. Mm-hmm. And so that gives you a really big picture of what life was like for this client that's sitting in front of me. Yeah. Even before the client sits in front of me telling me about their anxiety or their communication issues, you already identify enough things in their background that you realize, wow, this person has gone through a lot. Like myself, if I sat in front of a therapist with my 10 score and I start complaining about I'm having difficulties in my relationship, they're gonna start right there. They're gonna start with the difficulty I'm having in my relationship. But you're looking at someone that's sitting in front of you that has a very colorful background. What are you gonna do with that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, with the individuals, to answer your question, with the individuals that comes through our center, we don't just treat the trauma. We teach them life skills, and then the goal is to see them flourishing in the 8 different dimensions of life, and then going from just surviving lives to thriving and
That's
really
right.
making a difference in their communities.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of dimensions of life to balance. How do you
But
get somebody to juggle all 8 of them?
But you do. But you do.
Mm.
Okay, so let's go back. Do you not engage in yourself intellectually? Do you not?
Me?
Do you not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. Oh, yeah.
So we do that. We are always learning something new. So then, therefore, we are increasing our intellectual. The only thing is that now we are conscious of it. Have I read a book?
Mm.
Have I read an article? Right. So physically, when you talk about physical, everybody thinks it's that I have to be a size whatever. There's more to physical than that. Right? In our world of mental health, assessing for physical
Mm.
sometimes has to be how many hours of sleep did you get last night?
I-
What is the average? All right.
Well, Dr.
Because
Dor, listen, I got 3 little kids, so you can't be asking me that right now, right? Because not a lot of sleep happening in this house right now.
so you are aware of that, right? This is no
Mhm.
longer your blind side. You're not blindsided by the fact, okay, I need to pull up on my sleep somehow, even if I have to drop the kids at grandma's house for the
Oh, yeah, that's right. Get a nap in somewhere.
yeah. So, in actuality, to answer your question, we are always balancing those 8 areas. The only thing is that we're not conscious of it. And because we're not conscious of it, let's take our finances, for example. If we're not conscious of it and it starts going down, 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 then that's an area of imbalance that's going to create mental problem later on anyway.
Oh, you're not lying there. Yeah.
Yeah, the 8 dimensions, and there may be more, but when I look at my life, I'm always juggling these 8 balls.
Yeah.
As soon as one of them starts dropping too far down, it disrupts the equilibrium.
You can tell because something else starts to break, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
we got to get back on track. How do you get back on track? You drop one, you stop everything.
Well, I have a tool that I use to measure the dimension. When a client sits in front of me, I'm always asking, on a scale of 0 to 10, where are you here and there and whatnot? The individuals that are working with me, they know that we shouldn't allow them to fall too far down. You have to take care of your relationships, which is the R in the profess.
Mhm.
You have to take care of yourself spiritually, even if you're not spiritually minded. Even if I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about nature, I'm talking about water, I'm talking about environment. I'm talking, so that if you're not taking care of ththese areas, eventually there's going to be a gap, there's going to be a hole. And we don't want to get to that black hole for us to start pulling up on our lives, right? So,
Oh, no, it's good. Well, yeah, and I ask about other outcomes of your clients, right? Because I think about professionally, we think about insurance a lot, obviously. And one of the things that insurance companies have started to really think about is value-based care, right? And value-based care ties to how many return visits are your clients making to the ER or emergency departments? Are there higher levels of care that your clients are engaging at higher frequency than others? Or are your clients, through your I-PROFESS model and treatment with you, actually avoiding higher levels of care and therefore higher levels of cost, right? And so I think there's an economic, not game to be played, but an economic case perhaps to be made that with certain treatment models, you have better outcomes, and with better outcomes, yield more value for the payer and therefore, Dr. Dor, for you. Have you explored any of that kind of negotiation with an insurance company before?
no, I have not. If the question is, have I presented my model to my payers and asked them to pay me more because of this model, that would be ideal. But I have not done that with my payers at all. But it's a great idea to put out there. However, our center in Duncanville, the goal is to try to keep individuals out of higher level of care, right? If the client is coming in for sessions and they are seeing progress, they checking in with their clinicians, they're getting the assistance they need. That is maintenance to help keep them out of the hospitals. Clients don't like going to hospitals. I worked in hospitals. I've worked at treatment centers, and they are not happy campers when they have to go there. So the making sure that they are taking care of themselves mentally,
Yeah.
so they can stay out of the hospital. Yeah, that's a must. When the clients come to us, we're always checking to make sure are you seeing your psychiatrist, just to make sure that they stay with medication management, right? Because we know that as soon as they start going off there, okay, hospital's next. Is next. No matter how much they come into the office, if they need medication, and there's no way around it.
Right.
But
No,
if they
you're not
stop,
wrong.
but if they stop taking the medication, eventually they're gonna stop seeing us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then it's just a spiral, right? But it sounds like you're managing this multivariate process and model of looking at care for your clients, and you're looking at the whole person. And I can't help but think that has got to have the ripple effect just outside of the counseling room, right? It has to necessarily, right? Which has a direct impact on everything else. I imagine, right? Oh, that's very cool. Well, what's got you excited for the next 12 months of the practice?
I just mentioned that I lost a clinician, so the goal is going out there trying to recruit other individuals to come and be with us. Not everybody's a good fit, right? And so that's a process within itself. Again, I said the business journey is exciting, but it's also work.
Mm,
Right? It's also work. It's also work. Making sure that we are taking care of our frontline people, our front desk folks. The next 12 months for us, definitely we're gonna have to make sure that we do some replacement of clinicians. In the process of looking at our numbers, one of the things that I'm always keeping an eye on our payer mix to make sure that we're not top heavy.
mm.
I
Dr.
call it,
Dor, speaking
I
my
know,
language.
to make sure that we're not top heavy. So
Yeah.
the challenge in the past year or two and going forward is to keeping that payer mix balanced, because when we look at it of 2 years ago, we realized we were depending too much on one payer. And so being in this practice as long as I have been, I realized that, hey, you know what? A nice balance of referral base is really what we need. Because when you start as a clinician or a practice owner, when you start depending too much on one payer, it gets scary. There should be a little bit of fear there, because you realize, oh, there's 10 people that depending on this practice, but I'm only depending on one payer. Gabriel.
Well, I think your background in stock and like investment and buying and selling stocks
Yeah.
probably gave you the right risk management worldview to run a business. Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
It
that's
did.
cool.
You gotta.
Oh, for sure. If you could sit down with the Dr. Dor in Brooklyn and grab her by the shoulder, sit her down in the library, what is something you would have said to Dr. Dor back then?
Okay, for sure, I would say literally in those words. I would say, girl, you gotta aim higher. You're gonna have so much fun. You're shooting too low. You aiming too low. Aim a
Mm.
lot higher. I would have told her that for sure. But secondly, I would have encouraged her to learn everything. Learn everything you can, which I did to help me out. But I felt like going into private practice and from solo practitioner to a group practice. If I was going to say anything to myself, I would say start creating systems
Mm.
early. I'm talking even before you open your doors, right? Start creating systems, start creating checklists, start understanding what credentialing really is and how it's going to affect your practice. I would tell her to enjoy the journey, stop taking it so serious.
Oh, that's good. Stop taking it so seriously. That's good.
Lighten up is what I
Yeah.
would say.
Lighten up. I love it. So aim higher, systems,
Yeah.
and enjoy the ride.
And keep an eye on the numbers. That's a plus for me because I have a financial background. But if I was going to start my practice and I was fresh out of school, I would think I would be at a deficit because as a clinician, as a psychotherapist, you learn all the modalities. You learn how to take care of people. You learn how to care for people. But if you don't have a business background, or if you don't go get the business life skills necessary to run a business, you're gonna get stuck a lot. And every time you get stuck, that means you need to go to another seminar, another training, another group practice seminar
Yeah.
to learn the extra skill. And so I would say, yeah, that's been a very helpful situation. It's good to have the modality. It's good to have the treatment. It's good that you want to help people. But if you're gonna move from a solo practitioner to a group practice, go sit somewhere and learn something about business. Is what I would say. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, where do people find more of you if they want to turn up the volume on Dr. Dor in their life? How do they do that?
Well, I'm at the SOTM Life Skills Center in Duncanville, Texas. So they can always hit me up there. I do have a website, so they can catch me there.
Yeah, you're very easily accessible. Well, I appreciate you being here and doing this. Yeah, we look forward to seeing where the SOTM Center goes from here. But thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed today's episode of The Claim Game, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps new listeners to find us. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to The Claim Game on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback means so much to us. We want to provide valuable education about revenue cycle management. So if there's something we didn't cover in our topic that was a burning question for you, please let us know so we can try to get you the information you desire. You can find the links to all resources we mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into our resources, we have two places you can do that. First, you can go to our blog at practicesol.com/blog, where we have 8 years of educational blogs. If you want to learn more about what Practice Solutions does, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to practicesol.com to learn more and to connect with one of our awesome people on our team. Thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Catherine Zug, and this is The Claim Game. See you at the game table next time.